Yeah. Councilmember Pinto,
Hi, Councilmember Gray. Good afternoon.
good, how are you?
I am doing
Thank
well.
you so much for being there yesterday.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you for organizing it. It's such a great event.
That was such a wonderful event. And it was good to see all of his family there too.
Absolutely. But made me wish I had a chance. Thanks for organizing them. All right, we are going to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Councilmember Brooke Pinto, Chairwoman of the Committee on the Judiciary and Public Safety. I would like to call this meeting of the committee to order. Today is Tuesday, September 26th, 2023. And the time is now 3:03 p.m. We have a quorum with the presence of Ward 7 Councilmember Vince Gray and at-large Councilmember Christina Henderson. We have two items on the agenda today. First, Bill 25-42, the Grounds for Divorce, Legal Separation, and Annulment Amendment Act of 2023. And second, Bill 25-51, the District of Columbia Crime Victimization Survey Act of 2023. First, we will consider Bill 2542, the Grounds for Divorce, Legal Separation, and Annulment Amendment Act of 2023. This bill was introduced by Council members Nadeau, George, Robert White, Chairman Mendelson, and me on January 19th, 2023, and the committee held a hearing on the bill on June 8th, 2023. The bill makes three changes to the district's divorce and domestic relations laws. First, it eliminates mandatory waiting periods for divorce and legal separation in the district. Second, it directs judges when they are determining property allocations during divorce proceedings to consider whether one spouse has engaged in physical, emotional, or financial abuse against the other. Third, it authorizes judges to award exclusive use of a family home to one party while divorce proceedings are ongoing, regardless of which party has a property interest in the home or dwelling unit. I'll note that the committee print largely retains the language of the introduced bill. It does include two changes, both of which are a little bit in the weeds. First, the committee print largely retains the language of the bill as introduced that authorizes judges to award exclusive use of the family home or dwelling to a party as temporary relief during ongoing legal proceedings. The print slightly tweaks this language of the introduced bill by making the standard for determining temporary relief consistent with current district law to quote, just, equitable, and reasonable after consideration of all relevant factors. Second, one of the changes I mentioned a moment ago is to require judges in divorce proceedings to consider evidence of abuse when making determinations of property allocation. The way that our divorce law is structured to require judges to consider a list of factors to determine a property allocation that is just and equitable. The existing list of factors spelled out in statute does not include abuse. The introduced bill proposed a change to that by adding a new factor, evidence of intra-family offenses, such as abuse, to this list. The committee print goes a slightly different direction based on suggestions from witnesses who explain that judges in fact already do consider whether a party has engaged in intra-family offenses. They do so under an existing factor in the list that directs judges to look at the reasons the parties became estranged. So to better align with existing practice, the committee print uses this estrangement factor as a vehicle for directing judges to consider intra-family offenses. Specifically, the print amends that factor to add language requiring judges to consider, quote, the history of physical, emotional, or financial abuse by one spouse against the other. I'll note this is also somewhat more expansive language than the bill as initially proposed. Based on testimony from advocates for domestic violence survivors, I wanted to ensure that this language covered the full range of abuse that we can see between couples. That can go well beyond crimes that are classified as intra-family offenses. It includes things like physical violence that doesn't result into a criminal charge or conviction, emotional abuse, and even financial abuse. The committee's print and its broader language captures this range of abuses. I do want to take a moment to highlight why I think this bill is so important, particularly in terms of protecting survivors of domestic violence. First, waiting periods are outdated and problematic, and they are legally and practically confusing. Removing them provides clarity and consistency for court operations, expedites proceedings, and reduces litigation costs. But removing waiting periods is also important for victims of intimate partner and domestic violence, so that they don't have to remain in abusive and dangerous living situations while trying to divorce or legally separate. Second, expanding the estrangement factors in alimony and marital property allocation codifies judicial practice and expands considerations of domestic violence. Survivors will know that considerations of domestic violence in all its complexity and history is an explicit relevant factor in alimony and marital property allocation proceedings. Last, survivors of intimate partner and domestic violence should not have to choose between giving up their homes during divorce proceedings or remaining in a dangerous living situation. The bill's provisions explicitly authorize judges to award exclusive use of the family home or dwelling as temporary relief, will help to ensure that divorce survivors don't have to make that choice. With that, I now move the print and report for Bill 25-42. Leave for staff to incorporate this discussion as well as any technical changes made in consultation with the general counsel. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Allen, I do want to note we have also been joined by our Ward 6 colleague, Councilmember Charles Allen. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Pinto. Really appreciate you moving this forward today. At the hearing for this, I said, and I think we were joined by many others, our current divorce and separation statute, it's paternalizing, it's sexist, and it's dangerous. I think the state has no interest, zero, in failing to recognize married people as the adults they are. I said it at the hearing, I'll keep saying it. Marriage is a legal contract. It is not a cage. It's also a legal contract that have life or death consequences. It is antiquated. It is unjust to force either party to remain in a marriage they don't want to be in for even one day more than they care to stay married. District law requires a waiting period that's 6 months if the divorce is uncontested or a year if it's contested. In my view, this unnecessarily injects the government into the people's private lives. It's also, as you will laid out, it is the perfect recipe for emotional, financial, and physical abuse. Our laws currently trap victims of domestic violence for 6 months at the very least in a dangerous relationship. And if their abusers object, for an entire year. If they've got children, that means kids become a bargaining chip that further traps the abused spouse in the marriage, or it forces them to make other concessions to protect themselves and their children. So quite frankly, it's none of our business why you should choose to marry or why you choose to divorce or what either is going to look like for the two of you. So Chair Pinto, thank you very much for bringing this bill forward for us today. I hope this can move as quickly as possible, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Allen. Is there any other discussion on this bill? Councilmember Henderson.
Chair Pinto, thank you again for moving this legislation. I just want to associate myself with the comments of Councilmember Allen. When it was sort of brought to my attention, the long waiting periods that we have in our law, again, it goes back to a time where people felt as though we had to protect folks, and that, decisions that they may be irrational, and something that, we must have a waiting period in the same manner that we have waiting periods for other things. And so I think this is a good modernization step, and happy to support the measure today.
Wonderful. Thank you both very much. All right. Moment. Okay, with that, we move the measure for Bill 25-42. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Great. Hearing none opposed, the measure passes unanimously. Next, we will consider Bill 25-51, the District of Columbia Crime Victimization Survey Act of 2023. This legislation directs the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, or CJCC, to hire a contractor to conduct a biennial crime victimization survey in the district. This bill was introduced by Chairman Mendelson and Councilmember Allen on January 19th, 2023, and the committee held a hearing on this bill on May 17th, 2023. Bill 25-51, as introduced, required the Office of Victim Services and Justice Grants, or OVSJG, to conduct a biennial crime victimization survey in the district. Crime victimization surveys are used in a number of other jurisdictions to provide a much more accurate measure of the level of crime in a geographic area than police reports alone can provide, since many crimes are never reported to police. The results of these regular surveys will help inform our legislation and policy, offer valuable data for victim support services, and calibrate public perceptions about crime with data-driven reality about what is actually happening. This data will ensure that the district is working with the best available data in its crime prevention and intervention efforts. The committee print does make several minor changes to the introduced version. First, the committee makes the CJCC rather than OVSJG the agency responsible for overseeing the administration of this survey. We believe that CJCC is better positioned to handle this work since CJCC regularly conducts and oversees public safety research. Next, the print requires that the survey entity that CJCC contracts with demonstrate expertise in diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts in survey outreach, data collection, and analysis. Next, the print requires CJCC to convene a task force to serve as an advisory body to guide the development of the survey, make policy recommendations to CJCC based on the survey findings, and provide comments on the substance of CJCC's final report on the results of the survey. Next, the print requires that the survey and any supplemental materials be translated into the 5 most commonly spoken languages in the district. And finally, the print requires that CJCC and not the contractor produce a report and any included analysis from the survey data provided by the contractor as a research agency responsible for conducting and overseeing public safety research and distributing research findings to our public safety partners. CJCC is best positioned to write this report. With that, I now move the print and report for Bill 25-51 with leave for staff to incorporate this discussion as well as any technical changes made in consultation with the General Counsel. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Allen.
Thanks, Chair Pinto. Again, thanks as well for moving this one forward today. Really appreciate that. I had 2 things I was trying to think about as you were outlining this, and I have not had a chance to talk to you about this in advance. So let me just start by saying I'm absolutely supporting this today, but would maybe love to talk to you kind of after the markup and before first reading, because there was two things that I was thinking about. One is, as you talked about, this can be a really helpful tool for us to think about analyzing data to then help inform policy decisions. And I don't think when we crafted this, we included this, and maybe we should. We don't, for example, I think, ask about whether or not a victim was denied any medical or social services, by the respondent, because there may be cases where a victim seeking services and assistance, maybe let's say a victim who's seeking emergency shelter, but they're refused because all the beds were taken. That type of information might be useful to us in a policy context and help think about how we continue to expand that. We've also done a great job here at the council of expanding the Crime Victims Compensation Fund to be able to cover more victims. And maybe there's a way for us to help think about how this can help capture some of that compensation that's received there. So not taking any action right here on this. I would just love to, if I can work with you and get your thoughts on it, perhaps between here and first reading, and perhaps that's a couple of ways to add some other components into it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I think those are good ideas, and definitely happy to work with you on that and make sure that it's as helpful to inform the policies as we move forward. It also may be possible that there's another research vehicle that we're asking the CJCC to lead on right now that could be better suited for those types of information collection, but it may be this one. And so happy to work with you and your team on that and see how we can make this as helpful and strong as possible.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on this bill? All right. Well, we will then move to a vote on Bill 25-51. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Hearing no nays, the vote is unanimous. Thank you all very much. There being no I should ask, is there any further business before the committee today? All right, there being no further business, the time is now 3:17 p.m.